This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so as I was saying, we're going to talk about the types of naturopathic counseling services that are out there that you can offer to your clients. You know, when you start doing the health assessments with your clients, those that you will assist, they're not just coming in to just take a urine analysis or getting a iridology reading. You're going to be talking to them about their health. And then in talking to them about their health, you may see other opportunities of mental, emotional, and spiritual nourishment that they may be lacking in. And so I wanted to talk to you about the different types of naturopathic counseling services so that you will know what you are qualified to do, and to also give you some of the ideas of other counseling services that are complementary to naturopathy that you may want to get additional training in. Okay, so that's going to be our little brief presentation today. So when it comes to counseling, as a naturopath, a lot of times we have kind of standard um, situations and challenges that our clients come in with when they need counseling. And those are things like stress, anxiety, mild depression. Remember, unless you are a licensed psychologist or a licensed psychotherapist, then you will not be dealing with any life-threatening depression or any severe depression. That's not in our lanes as naturopaths. So any types of mild depression, baby blues, change of environment kind of blues, relationship ending kind of blues, those are the types of mild depressions that you're able to deal with naturally based on your training as a traditional naturopath. We will also deal with people that have phobias, obsessions, or compulsions, things that they need help controlling, strengthening their will. Eating disorders, of course, as naturopaths, our first line of recommendation is nutrition. So if you have a person that has sugar addictions, um, salt addictions, fast food addictions, those kinds of eating disorders, then you are definitely qualified to assist them with helping to change that aspect of their lifestyle. Then you have bereavement and grief, those who lose loved ones, helping them to understand the spiritual aspect of transitions and how that lends us to a greater field of gratitude. Then clients may also come in with relationship problems. And in these relationship problems, whether they're dealing with the relationship with their parents, or the relationship with their children, or the relationship with their coworkers, the relationship with their significant others, sometimes people just need a sounding board, somebody to talk to and get a little advice from. So you're definitely qualified for that. Sometimes they may come in when they have sexual problems, or if there is some kind of emotional instability. And my favorite is personal development. Let me help you be better. And this is what I know to work for you to get the best out of your life. Okay. So those are some of the counseling services or issues that we are best qualified for as naturopaths. Now we have a few types of counseling therapies that we can offer. You can offer child therapy, and child therapy is where you take on an avenue of naturopathic pediatrics. And in naturopathic pediatrics, if that child has suffered some kind of abuse, or if that child has a learning disability, or that child has gone through some kind of traumatic experience, then you are qualified to help in child therapy. Now, with child therapy, we usually use play as a form of therapy. So that's where we have the dolls, the blocks, the coloring, the markers. We bring those elements into child therapy in order to help the children. The last child that I counseled this past year was a 10-year-old, and we met at his favorite park. So when we would go to his favorite park, we would sit by the water, we would throw rocks in the water, and that was a place that he actually felt comfortable to talk about the challenges that he was having with his stepfather. And we were able to work through it, and stepfather became better, although he didn't even come to counseling, because the child knew then how to relate to the situations dealing with his stepfather. So, the child therapy is usually, we schedule at least 5 or more therapies sessions with the child. When it comes to counseling, you don't just have like one session and then everything is fine. Now, there are some times when clients will abandon the sessions after one session, just depends on what they're going through. Because sometimes, as counselors, when we open up those doors that they've been avoiding and don't want to deal with, and they see how tough it is to really get through it, sometimes they abandon it because they're not ready. Now, we also have family therapy. And family therapy is where the whole family, or either certain members of the family, come to therapy together to talk about the difficulties that they're having in their relationship. And with family therapy, every family member that comes has to be willing to work. Because, if mom is dragging brother and sister to come to therapy and they really don't want to do this, it's not going to be successful. So we say that with family therapy, usually 10 or more sessions to really help families make significant changes is also necessary. And then we have group therapy. And group therapy is usually used when people have the same kinds of addictions, or if they have the same kinds of problems that they are going through. Then we would put together a group therapy. And in that group therapy, you would have people to open up, talk about the issues, soundboard off of each other, and come back the next time. So, some group therapies that we're kind of used to are things like Alcoholics Anonymous, drug addiction therapy, sex addiction, group sessions, those kinds of things. But, group therapies can be around anything. It could be around, traumatic police experiences in the community, or, violence, gang violence in the community. So it could be around pretty much anything. People that are having eating disorders, you could have a group therapy session for that. Or mothers that feel like they're being taken advantage of in their families and they're overworked, overtired. You can have a group session for that. So group therapy usually takes place in about 6 or more sessions. Again, 1 or 2 is just not going to do it for most of the therapy sessions. And then you have hypnotherapy. Now, hypnotherapy requires for you to be a certified hypnotherapist. For those of you who are interested in hypnotherapy, One of the courses that I recommend where you can get your first level of hypnotherapy free of charge. It's an online course, and it's through the HMI Hypnotherapy Institute in California. And if you just type in the initials HMI and then put in hypnotherapy, it's going to come up. They offer their first hypnotherapy certification, and you take quizzes and all of that online. I've gone through it. It's really nice. Um, and you can get your first level of hypnotherapy training from them. Okay. So with hypnotherapy, this is where you actually help a person go into a suggestive state of mind. And in that suggestive state of mind, they are able to look at themselves, look at the situations that are bothering them. Some of it may stem from their childhood. Some of the difficulties that they're experiencing may stem from past relationships. Some may be, they've been assaulted, or they're dealing with some kind of trauma that has been festering inside that they've never dealt with. So hypnotherapy gets down to the bottom of what's really bothering the person and help them to bring it out into the surface so that they can heal from it. So you see why that needs additional training, because people are really good at hiding what's bothering them. And then life coaching. Life coaching is also very good. This is where you help a person to come in, make their plans for where they want to go in life, and you help them through their step by step. You don't formulate the steps by steps for them. You help them go through their step by step process. And sometimes a life coaching session may just be, hey, how you doing? What's happening in your world? Where are you going to? What are you working on now? Or it could just be just like a check-in. Or you all could really sit down and plan, okay, in 2 months, in 3 months, in 10 months, in a year, this, that, or the other. Life coaching is really fun. I really enjoy working with my life coaching clients, because you see the progress of those that are really determined to make a difference for themselves. I like life coaching. And then marriage counseling is also another naturopathic counseling that you can provide. I always say, don't choose marriage counseling if you haven't been married before. Okay, you really need to have some experience with going through relationships. And let me tell you, whenever couples come to me for marriage counseling, guess what? The first question they ask, Dr. Akua, how long have you been married? That's the first question, always. And so, putting their minds at ease, I let them know I've been married for 35 years. And, my husband and I are still 100%. We're all 100 in everything that we do together. So there's a certain level of confidence that you can instill in your clients when you have that experience. And also when it comes to marriage counseling, even if you've been married before, but then your marriage broke up, you got to make sure to not take your stuff into your marriage counseling services. Okay, so be very clear on that in terms of marriage counseling. Then you have your psychodynamic therapy. Now, your psychodynamic therapy, very simple. It's similar to hypnotherapy in that you really have the person to delve back into their childhood. You have them to look deeply into their past situations in life, but this is not through hypnosis, though. Okay. With psychodynamics, you try to get to the root cause of why their behavior today is the way it is and how it was influenced by things that happened to them in the past. So that's your psychodynamic therapy. So some of the questions that come out of psychodynamic therapy are, let's see when this started for you. Okay. When was the first time you felt this way? How did your parents treat you? Or where do you think you developed this behavior from? And 9 times out of 10, it can go way back into the past, times when they were 4, 5 years old. So that's what we call psychodynamic therapy. You've heard of it. If you've had counseling, you've probably been through it too. And then we have something that's called rebirthing therapy. And rebirthing therapy we use with clients that have gone through something traumatic. And that traumatic experience has caused them to develop a fear or a phobia or a resistance to moving forward in life based on the traumatic experience. And the rebirthing therapy involves a mirror. And this is where you're sitting with the person and they're looking in the mirror at themselves. And they are reliving the traumatic experience while looking at themselves in the mirror. And specifically in this rebirthing therapy, they are looking in the mirror and they're focusing on their left eye. And we have them to focus on the left eye because the left eye is considered the actual center of the soul, the left eye. So they sit there and they go through the particular traumatic experience. And then we also have them, while they are reliving it, we're having them to do a particular mindful breathing technique. So we teach them how to do the breathing technique. They focus on the left eye, they relive the experience. And when the experience gets rough for them in their reliving it, they intensify the breathing technique. And so we take them through about 10 sessions of repeating this. And it helps them to be able to breathe through the process of remembering that traumatic experience and seeing that it no longer controls their lives. And it becomes easier and easier and easier for them until they can think about the experience and it no longer bothers them. Okay, so that's a very interesting rebirthing therapy that is used when people suffer from traumas. So those are some of the types of counseling therapies that we are qualified for. Now let's talk about some of the key principles of counseling. What are some of the things that you have to consider when you get ready to talk to your clients? So having personal therapy sessions, of course, is a good prerequisite to becoming a proficient counselor. So I would recommend that you go and have some counseling if you haven't had it before. See what it's really about. Because I tell you, when you open yourself up to becoming a naturopath, you're going to be doing more talking to your clients than anything. I promise you. Because they're going to have questions. They're going to want you to help them to get down to the bottom of all of this emotional and mental stuff that's happening. They may come to you with problems that they have in their church, in their women's group, stuff that they can't tell their husband. It's a lot that goes on with people mentally and emotionally that they're going to entrust you with. Okay. Unconscious repression can disturb the body and the mind. And what that means is that when people come in, they've repressed some stuff. And they may not even know that they've repressed things. But many of the counseling questionnaires that we have when you get to putting together your forms and really asking about the mental, emotional, and physical well-being of your clients, that's going to bring up a lot of stuff that they've repressed. And you want to bring that stuff up because that's the only way to true healing. I also recommend that you learn to hear and see the issues and imbalances. You know, people have a tendency to say, "Oh, I'm fine. Oh, I'm pretty good." You know, those kinds of things. But in actuality, they're not. And so they can say, "Yeah, you know, we good." But then you see them cross their legs and fold their arms when they say they're pretty good. That means they're not pretty good. So you learn to hear and see the issues and imbalances. And then clients will often initiate the dialogue. And you should let the client lead when it comes to the counseling session. Let them talk about what they want to talk about. Now, you know, if they're sitting there looking at you and you sitting there looking at them, then you also need to learn how to become proficient in uncovering the issues that are going on. Because sometimes they don't know what to talk about because it's so much. So what I do is I start with a check. And my check is, how are you doing physically? What kind of things have been on your mind that have been making your mind uneasy lately? Or how are your relationships with everybody around you? And then how are you doing with your spiritual nourishment in life? What are you doing to bring your spirit peaceful moments of existence? Okay. And then you have note taking. You know, if you've ever been to counseling, you know your counselor sits there with a notepad, and throughout the whole session, he or she is writing, 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 talking and writing, talking and writing, talking and writing. This note taking is a must for every single session you have for you and your client. You're taking notes for your client just in case you have to refer back to something that your client said in order to help them move forward. You're also taking notes for your client just in case you have to share those notes with another therapist or a doctor that your client wants you to share them with. You're also taking notes for you because you want to be able to have a record of what information was given to you and what you replied in terms of the information that you gave to them. So you're taking notes on what they're saying, and you're also taking notes on what you're saying. Because if you ever have to bring these notes to a court of law, or if you have to refer back to these notes when something happens, you've got it all on record. Now, you take your notes in handwriting, but let's say, for instance, if you have to share these notes for reimbursement of payments from someone's Flex account, you know, and the company, the insurance company wants to see records of this person actually having come to counseling and received consultation from you, then you already have it. So although you will hand take these notes, excuse me, it's on silent. And although you will hand take these notes, I always recommend that you then word process them. so that they're already ready to go if you're ever called to bring these notes out in any kind of situation. So always remember to take notes, take notes, take notes. People come into counseling, they already know the doctor, the consultant, the naturopath is taking notes. So it's not anything strange that you'll be doing. Okay. Now, lastly, I want to talk to you about the precautions of counseling. Okay. Again, you want to avoid interjecting your personal views on your clients. You know, your problems are your problems. You go to your own counselor for that. But your client is not your counselor. So don't dump your personal experience, especially if it's negative, back out into the counseling session. Because as you're sitting there listening, yep, it's triggering your thoughts too on what they're saying. You feeling their pain, you're empathizing, but don't give it back to them. You know, if that comes up and that's something you got to deal with, again, go get your own counselor. And then practice non-judgmental, unconditioning listening. So don't judge your clients. When you sit down and you talk to people as their naturopathic counselor, you're going to hear a whole bunch of stuff. Some stuff that you never even imagined folks going through or happening in a person's life. Okay, you'll learn about issues of molestation, you'll learn about rape, you'll learn about, you know, weird sexual habits. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. You know, people being kleptomaniacs. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. But you have to be non-judgmental, and unconditional in your listening. And the only time that you interrupt a client when they're talking is to help them focus on the issue. So if they bring up the issue of overeating, and they're saying, you know, they're staying up all night long, and each hour they're going in the kitchen preparing a meal, okay? And then they start talking about those chocolate chip cookies that they baked. No, 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 no. Let's get back to the issue. The issue is not what you put in your chocolate chip cookie recipe. All right. And then, so that's the only time we interrupt, is to help focus. Otherwise, if the client talks for a whole hour, let them talk for a whole hour. All right. Do not psychoanalyze or practice psychotherapy in any way. It is illegal. So the only thing that you are a naturopath, as a naturopath, is qualified to give is information that is going to assist them with emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical balance. That's where your focus is. Your focus is not, I think you have depression, or you might be schizophrenic, or you might have bipolar. That's not terminology that we use in our counseling. But you can say, let's see how we can bring your body, mind, and spirit together by practicing, let's say, affirmations, or, you know, getting enough sleep, or applying this herb to your morning routine, etc., etc. So that's what we're qualified to do. But we're not qualified to say, you know, I think you're borderline bipolar, or you might be suffering from some kind of um, psychosis from your parents abusing you. No, we can't do that. So do not psychoanalyze and do not practice psychotherapy unless you have that license. And also display your credentials. Have them available if you are asked, okay? Especially if clients are coming into your office, have your certificates on the wall. You know, show that you are a certified naturopath. if you get board certified, have your board certified traditional naturopath certificate on the wall. If you've gotten your certification in life coaching, display your credentials. Let your clients know that they're not just not talking to their girlfriend. They're talking to someone who has actually gone through training that can truly assist with the things that they have going on in relationship to how we handle these kinds of issues and stress in naturopathy. And also be clear on the time of your counseling sessions. If it's a 30-minute session, then it ends in 30 minutes. If it's a 60-minute session, then it ends in 55 minutes. So you always value your time. Please don't let someone who is scheduled for 30 minutes talk an hour and 30 minutes unless you have opened up the door to say, okay, our session is going to be $175 each hour. And if you go into the second hour, that's another $175. And that is how much I charge for my counseling sessions, is $175 an hour. So again, be clear, learn the technique of wrapping up the counseling session around 5 minutes before time is over. That way you teach your clients to respect your time, and you also have time to not be late for your next appointment. So one of the ways that I do that is at 5 minutes till, if they're talking and about 5 minutes till they've stopped talking, or 10 minutes till, I will go ahead and say, okay, so let's look back at what we've talked about over this session. This, that. Let me go ahead and give you my recommendation for that. Okay. Here's something that I want you to try based on what you've shared today, da 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 da. So you always do that conclusion segue right about 5 to 10 minutes before it's time, especially if you have a client that's long-winded. Okay. And then also have a protocol for multiple sessions. And one of my protocol for multiple sessions, nobody comes to me just one time. If you're going to do counseling with me, you get a 15-minute free consultation. And in that free 15-minute consultation, based on what you tell me, I'll know how long it's going to take for us to make a significant dent in what it is you need help with. So let's say if I know that it's going to take a person a year to really work. So what I'll do is I will offer them a $75 discount on each session if they commit to and pay upfront for a year of counseling. Or if we're going to do it in 2 counseling sessions per month, 6 months of counseling. And I give them a discount. That way, you know that if they're serious, they're going to take advantage of only paying $100 per session as opposed to $175 per session. So when we talk about protocols for multiple sessions, you can give them like an outline. Okay, we're going to cover this. That's how I do with my marriage counseling. They have an outline. First session, third session, fourth session, we have a protocol of 12 things that we're going to talk about over the next year in order to get you ready to live your lives together forever. So develop those protocols for multiple sessions, because you can say to a client, I want you to come back and see me. But you also have to give them an incentive for their healing. Otherwise, people will be like, let me just deal with it. when they know that you can help them because they came to you in the first place. What questions do you have?